Hello, everybody. We are live again for another day of surviving quarantine by spreading life. And I'm excited today because I have Brandon Laws with me, who is such an awesome person. And I cannot wait for y'all to get to speak with him or hear him. So before we get started, I do want to continue to ask you to like, subscribe, and share because our goal is to bring positivity, but also information that will lead to inspiration and hopefully some transformation because we're here to help. And so in that time, also remember that you can comment. If you hear something and you have a question, just put it up in the comment section and we'll get to it. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, Emily. It's good to
How
see
are you today?
I'm great. We've already talked once today. I'm excited for this conversation where I'm on the other side this time.
I know we get to switch roles, and I'm excited about it because today we're going to be talking about time and money. And so before we dive in deep on it, just tell a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Current role, I'm a senior director of marketing and product at a company called Zenium. We do HR consulting and payroll processing. And I've been there for over 11 years and I grew up through the company. I think I started with the company when we were like 24 employees or something like that. This is back in 2008. I was right out of college. And that was a tough time for everybody. Although I was sort of, I was sort of looking at it like, I'm excited to get into the workforce, and so I was really growth oriented, growth mindset, and came into an operations role. And fast forward to today, kind of built out the marketing department with a couple key players around me, and we're almost 100 employees, probably tripled or quadrupled in revenue, and that's kind of where I'm at today. And I love talking about topics like this, time and money. I actually have a podcast myself where we are really geared towards HR and leadership professionals. We call it Transform Your Workplace. It's really for those that want to create a great workplace where people can thrive, be engaged, and all that. So you actually came on earlier today, and we talked about stress in the workplace, and hugely important. And it's ironic that we're talking about time and money today because that's a huge driving force for stress for a lot of people. So
Yes, I agree. And that seems to be the reason, I guess, again, why I'm so passionate about it is because these two things, time and money, can be one of the leading causes of stress, if not the leading cause, because we always say that you hear that communication is the number one issue. Well, I believe it's expectations, and time and money require expectations from others. And so in that aspect, so let's just go ahead and get started. Why does time and money matter?
Well, time and money are they're the resources that are very important for success. And often we don't know how to manage them appropriately. So we have a finite amount of time. I like to think that there's an endless supply of money, but for most of us, there is a finite amount with our paychecks. And so how do you use those resources that are going to work for you instead of against you? And I think too often people squander those two resources, and it is a cause for a lot of stress. And we see this in the workplace where you're bringing whatever stress and baggage that you have with you to the office, and it is impactful on your productivity. And so I always think of wow, if employers or even colleagues we could start talking about time and money and helping each other on this front. Wow, work would be so much better, and our families would be so much better. But I think for a lot of people, they don't want to talk about it, and I'm here to change that. I'm hoping.
And that's the point that I want to make on this is the discussion on why is it something that we just don't want to talk about, because it's important. It's for accountability, for help. Just, I know it's a vulnerable subject at times, but why?
Well, for money, I think it's taboo. I think a lot of people aren't comfortable with it. I also think people are very opinionated and have differing opinions on how money should be spent. Or, I mean, the whole issue with money and wanting to keep up with the Joneses, that's a real thing. And so people want to spend money so it looks like they're successful. And they don't often want to just take care of their own household or those sort of things. But I think with time, we let other people control our time, and we just sort of let it come at us versus taking the reins and actually dictating how our day is spent. For example, I think everybody who's on this can relate to this, but somebody sends you an invite, a calendar invite that says, "Hey, let's come to this meeting." No, there's no agenda. You don't know why you're invited to the meeting, but you just accept it blindly. Well, somebody just hijacks 60 minutes of your time, and you don't even know why you're invited in the first place. I mean, that happens so often. And I mean, what would it be like to take 60 minutes back in your day and use it for something, productive, something that can help you personally?
Mhm.
So that's just the way I think of it. We just let it happen to us instead of take control.
And that's the other thing that sometimes there's two things that's going through my brain right now. One thing is that I'm thinking of Warren Buffett and his comment. It was him and a bunch of big time people that had tons of money. And basically he was saying, I can't remember who was in it with it, but Bill Gates. It was Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, and they were having a conversation. And basically he goes, I can buy anything, but my time, his time is
Yes.
the most valuable thing that he can have. So why, if we're hearing the riches of the rich say time is most important, why don't we value that like we should?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I think you have to put it into perspective. Like, how much time do you actually have? And we spend, let's say, 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours at work, an hour on the road commuting to work. Well, maybe not now. Um, if you have kids, you're spending time making dinner and playing with the kids. And what's left for you? And I mean, do you want to spend the rest of your time watching Netflix? I mean, some people might say yes because you need to I don't know, maybe it's therapeutic for you to enjoy that time, but I don't know, like, for me, like, don't you wanna get at least 1 to 2% better every single day and use that time wisely? I don't know if people are thinking like that, um, and maybe they're just exhausted. I kinda get it. I really do.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I like is, and I heard it the other day, is just be 1% better every day.
Yeah.
Just 1% because that's something that seems right now doable.
Yeah.
And so, what are some things that people can do to be 1% better in either the time or money aspects?
Yeah, that whole 1% better thing that comes from James Clear in his book Atomic Habits. And a lot of people were on that. But if you put it into practice, it's like, what can you do to get 1% better every day? And that's going to look different for every person because you might be in a differing field than somebody else. And so how you're going to spend that time might be different. But for me, it's spending time probably learning. It's, it could be reading 20 minutes about something you don't know. It could be learning a new language. It could be exercising. It could be meditation. It could be any of those things. You just have to figure out what it is. But if you can get 1% better than you were the day before, that can look a lot of different ways. But I think you're going to be set up for the future because if you imagine just building on that. So let's say, like, from a physical standpoint, let's say I do 10 push-ups today, and then tomorrow I do 11 push-ups, 1%, or I guess that'd be 10%, but just a little bit better every day. Like, think about in 30 days what I'm going to look like. I might
Mhm.
feel better. I might have more energy. I might be able to do 100 push-ups at a time at that point. So I read a lot of books, and if I read 30 minutes a day, I figured out you could read 100 books in a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, just do the math.
Yeah.
Book 200 to 250 pages. It it equates to 60 to 100 books, depending on how fast you read. So
And that's so true. Like, I know that me and you, we can get nerdy about reading, and but what are some of your, and I know that you made a list too. So some of you, like your top books, I'll say like Dave Ramsey has been something for me for
yeah,
money, that I've really like learned, or Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, like, or Bob Chapman. Those are like the ones that I've gravitated to. What are some of your top favorites?
yeah. From a time management standpoint, Seven Habits is obviously one of the first ones that I put on there. That was actually one of probably the first books I read when I was coming in. Like, so I don't know about you, Emily, but when I came out of college, and I entered the workforce, I'm like, that can't be it. I can't stop learning. I was like, I don't feel like I learned a whole lot. So people I was really close to, they're like, you need to start reading. And one of the books they gave me was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that one is great from money management, treating people a certain way and leading, time management, all that. So I highly recommend that one. Getting Things Done by David Allen is another great one. That one is, it was written, I think, in the 80s. So it's more of like a paper-based time management system, but it applies to email and some of those little tactical things that we need to deal with on our daily basis. So that's a great one. Peter Drucker's The Effective Executive is a great one. So if you're in a leadership position, this one will get you to think strategically about how you spend your time. There's 3 newish books that I really like: Make Time, Atomic Habits, which we talked about, and Essentialism. And those are fantastic for figuring out how to really plot out your days, weeks, months, and all that, and align with your goals. And then one that I think everybody needs to read is really simplistic, is Eat That Frog. And it's, I mean, you probably don't need to read it, but it's, in a nutshell, it says, first thing in the morning, tackle the biggest, hardest, most audacious thing that you need to accomplish, and then you're going to feel good the rest of the day. And it'll probably snowball into tackling other things. So those are, from a time management, those are essential books that you need.
I'll say Eat That Frog is one that I've talked about a lot in my classes, and everybody's face is like, what? And I'm like, it's catchy title. It is. But I think it actually is true, finding the things that you don't want to do and do them first. Just get them out of the way. And how effective it is, because I'll say this morning, I had to do that. I had to go to the post office, and I've been avoiding going to the post office. Well, 1, because we're in Corona right now. 2, because it takes forever. And I'm trying to find a way so I don't have to go in the line and wait, and I can do it on my own. Long story short, I did it, and I felt so productive today just by doing that one thing. And it's just a simple mindset. It's the other thing, like Make Your Bed, the one by the Navy. I forgot his name, but his book is about just make your bed first thing. Just find a win in the morning. So what about
even like in the money side, Dave Ramsey always talks about, like, start with the smallest debt, for your debt snowball, because oftentimes just taking a little bit of action, it'll like feel good. I don't know if it's a dopamine hit or what it is, but it gets you going. And so you're like, oh, wow, I can really do this. Making the bed would be no different. It's like, oh, wow, I accomplished that. I'm ready to tackle the day.
Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing I like, that basically it's about human, like time and money is all about human behavior.
Yeah.
And even with Dave Ramsey and the stuff that he speaks on, it's like the math doesn't really make sense at the beginning on a lot of things that he speaks on. And so it's like, how does that work out? But it's a behavioral issue.
It is.
And so what about money? What are some top recommendations for books or ways that people...
The books on money that I've read, they've varied from very elementary in thought, and some are just some are behavior based, and then some are like investing, and they're kind of the higher end ones that I'm not going to recommend today. But if you ever want to go that route, just direct message me on LinkedIn or something. I can give you recommendations. But the ones I love: Total Money Makeover. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good found. You and I both love Dave Ramsey's work. I think a lot of like upper end financial people will probably be like, his advice isn't sound on the surface, but for the mass majority of people who don't know anything about money and how to deal with it, it is a perfect book to get started, and it will de-stress you. Trust me. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is one I really like. That's a Robert Kiyosaki book, and he's pumped out like probably 15 other books that have the same formula. But the idea is that you want to spend your money on income producing things or assets instead of acquiring liabilities. And so that really gets you to see like the balance sheet from a personal perspective. It gets you to really focus on investing in yourself and paying yourself first. So those, I like that. The other one that was profound, that it's been years since I've read it, but I love it and I still quote it to this day, is The Millionaire Next Door. So basically what it talks about in that book is that there are often people very close to you that are millionaires or close to, and they don't even act the part.
Hmm.
We look at the Kardashians and people like that. I mean, they're probably almost close to billionaires at this point, but it's all luxury, right? It's the fancy cars and the jewelry and the big houses, and the common millionaire, maybe just a millionaire, maybe, but they're financially wealthy. They're modest. They probably drive the same car that they've had for 10 years. They don't live paycheck to paycheck. They save money every month. They pay themselves first. They do the non kind of sexy money
Hmm.
habits, but they're good habits nonetheless. And these people look just like you and I do, but they don't show it off.
Hmm. I agree, and I love what I say is that there are more millionaires in overalls than anybody will ever know, especially my area, because I'm blessed to know a lot of them, and that's what I love. I wouldn't know that they were until basically their family or they are friends of family, and it's where you hear a story where they donated, and one, they don't want anybody to know, but it still gets out of the bag. And I love that. I've actually never read that book, so that would be very interesting. But I think that's true. Living your life without the expectation of impressing others and doing it for yourself.
Think how
And
free you'll feel.
that's a fact. And so that's maybe something that selfishness, people sometimes look at this like time and money management as being selfish. I think it's selfish in a good way. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a good question. I think on the surface it could look that way, but the way I look at it is kind of like when you lead people. How are you a good leader if you can't lead yourself?
Hmm.
And how are you going to manage other people's time if you can't manage your own?
Hmm.
How are you going to give advice to people on money if you can't even handle your own household, or run a business if you don't even know how to run your own household? More zeros doesn't help anything if you don't know how to keep the money you already have. So I don't think it's selfish. I think it's smart. I think people should spend time learning about money and time, and I think organizations too should. Maybe they don't think it's part of their duty to help people learn about these things, or even do lunch and learns or other educational resources about time and money. But I think it's wise because you don't really learn this stuff in school. I mean,
Mm-mm.
did you learn this in high school or college? I didn't.
No, I got blessed to have my family. I've been hearing basically growing up. I had to sit and hear Dave Ramsey almost every time I got in the car, and I hated it. And now I am a Dave Ramsey person that speaks about it, and so I'm an advocate. So it's very funny on how it works out. And I'll say for me, going back to the stress, I was blessed because of listening to it since a young age that I've been financially set up for success. Like my business, I did not have to take a loan out. But
Good
think
for
of how
you.
many other people had to take loans out or they couldn't start with cash. But the thing is instant gratification. I think that's something else that we need to really talk about on maybe quickly is instant gratification and how it can hijack this time and this money success.
It's the truth. So instant gratification. I'll start with the money side, and I'll use this example during this coronavirus stuff. I'm sure you've saved money in various areas of your life, but my God, does it feel good to just shop on Amazon real quick and just buy a product? I actually saw a quote the other day that was like, the adult version of an ice cream truck is the UPS or Amazon delivery guy. And it's so true. It's like the retail therapy. I mean, for times like this, the instant gratification it's real. It feels good. But at the end of it, you look at it and you're like, what did I get as a result of that? And I think time is the same way. I think when we think, oh, I got an hour, I'm gonna turn on Netflix real quick. I feel like watching Ozark right now. That sounds good. But then at the end of it, you're like, well, I just watched a show. I didn't get any better. And now I'm going to do it all over again tomorrow. Like, I think the instant gratification of the moment, you got to be disciplined. You got to time block. You got to really be thoughtful about it.
Yes. So what are some like key strategies on both sides that you would say if people could start doing today?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the time side of it because I think this is really important. So, time blocking
Hmm.
is huge. Most of us are operating in probably digital calendars, whether it's your iPhone or Outlook or Google Calendars, whatever. But you shouldn't just have meetings in there. It should be time for you. You own your calendar. So block out whether it's 30 minutes to read, 30 minutes to meditate, 30 minutes to write in a journal, 30 minutes to call a family member, um, things like that, because otherwise your day will consume you with other people's priorities. So if you don't
Hmm.
prioritize in your own calendar and spend it the way you want, your day will get hijacked. And then at the end of it, you'll realize, what did I do today? I mean, that happened to me earlier this week. So I'm preaching this. I'm not perfect. It's happened to me on Monday actually, where I had like I think I had 6 Zoom calls in a row or throughout the day, and then in between, people are like, "You got 5 minutes? Got 10 minutes?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?"
Yeah.
I didn't block out my time versus if I had a commitment to myself to do a project or exercise or something, I would have done it. And I would have said, nope, sorry, not available.
Yep.
I also think saying no is a huge asset to time management. And I know early on in your career, it's a little tough to say no. But I think as you get later on in your career where time is finite, it's for everybody, it's finite. You're talking about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. Those guys, they had to say no to people. Everybody wants 5 or 10 minutes of your time, but they know what it takes to be successful. And you need to I think people need to prioritize what's important to them and what's going to be successful for them. So that way they can say no if something doesn't align. So that's huge. Meetings. So I'm a big, I'm an anti-meeting guy, really. I think meetings are important if they're run appropriately. I think they could be really productive. I think too often people default to an hour-long meeting and then use up the full hour, and they didn't need to.
Hmm.
So my suggestion: default to 15 or 30-minute meetings, end 5 minutes early.
Hmm.
People will appreciate it because oftentimes
Hmm.
people book themselves back to back. And so if they need a bathroom break, they need to grab a granola bar, whatever it is, or just prepare for the next meeting. That 5 minutes is huge. They'll
Hmm.
appreciate you for it. And also, when you're running the meetings, they'll probably want to attend your meetings in the future. So I think for a meeting facilitator, scheduling meetings that are that amount of time and ending early are great. Also provide an agenda as well.
Hmm.
I mean, I could go on and on about time management. Those are some things. Make time for yourself. That is the biggest advice I can give. Make time for yourself. Block out time to exercise. Block out time to read. All that.
Mhm. And I want to say too, like on a lot of the things that you're talking about, they're like, oh, but that's so much manual work. But technology is so great right now. Like for me, I use Meeting Bird. It is a free resource. You could even add buffers in there. And for me, I put Fridays is like my day. It is my day to think. So after 2 p.m. on Fridays, sorry, y'all. It is going
Yep.
to be me doing my studying. It's going to be me doing my reading and learning and investing back into me. And I've done this basically my whole career, making sure that I have a day that's designated for me to have self growth and self improvement. Because the end result of it is, as a leader, if I don't do that and I'm not growing, that means in essence, the people that I am fostering, they might not be getting the potential, or I'm not giving them the potential that I can have. So I love everything that you just said. I always say that we are so not just like-minded, we're also like-hearted and like just the passion for people with the time and money. So let's finalize this out with money. What are some quick tips that you would say for the money aspect?
Yeah, there's one area that I think is humongous when it comes to money, and then it's relevant to time as well, but track it. So if you don't know
Mm-hmm.
where your money's going, I don't even know how you approach it differently, because you could be like, oh my gosh, I'm spending more than what I make. Well, where's it going? Right. And I think without knowing where either your money or time is going, it's hard to make adjustments, because then it's based on gut feeling, and it's not a very good approach. I know people say, "Oh, it was a gut feeling, it's an innate feeling," but no, like it's not scientific. It's hard to go out. It's biased too. So I would say before you even start thinking about money, track where it's going. You want to know where your expenses are going. You want to know how much money you make. And then after that, then you can make some decisions. I think the obvious one is spend less than you make. So if you know how much money you make on a regular basis, make sure you don't spend it all, and that you invest a little bit of it. You want to pay yourself first, as I think Dave Ramsey says, and you want to invest early on too.
Mhm. Yeah, compound interest.
Well, yeah, like for me, like as soon as I had a 401k option at age 18, I started doing it.
Mhm.
And I'm 34 now, and it's like I'm way ahead than where I would have been if I started when I
Mhm.
started making, decent money.
Yeah.
And I think too often people are waiting and waiting. It's kind of like when's the right time to have a kid? Like there's no right time. You just sort of do it because it was your purpose in life. You wanted a kid, and it's the same with money. There's
Mhm.
never a right time to invest a lot of it. Like when I think at one point I boosted it up to like 20% of my income to try to max out my 401k. And my God, did it feel nerve wracking. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, I'm not going to have money left over. I can't spend it on the things I want and have a good life, but you can make adjustments. So that's why it's important to track where your money's going and then invest in yourself first, pay yourself first. That compound interest is huge.
I love it. I love everything you said. Oh, it's so good. I know that we had a few comments. I know Nathan commented. He said that he's excited to hear what we had talked about today. And then he also said, commented on love that make your bed. That's where my day starts. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate you and everybody else
Oh,
that tuned in to watch. Again, just thank you so much for joining us. Thank you,
thank you, Emily.
Brandon. You are just, again, awesome. I will say that over and over again. You're one of my top favorite people. Just
Thanks, Emily. You too.
and so tune in next week. Actually, next week's going to be replays because this girl is investing in herself and some
Yes.
relax time. so, so you'll see replays, but still tune in and join them. And then we're going to get started back up the following week. And so we are excited to continue to bring you some amazing guests that can speak life into you. And I know a lot of people might be tired of hearing about COVID-19. So we actually are changing the name to Unapologetically Bold because that's what it is, bringing people like you, Brandon, that just speak about it on things that people are afraid to talk about. And we shouldn't have to say, I'm sorry about talking about it. So that's what we will be continuing to do. So I, again, thank you. And thank you for everybody that joined. Have an awesome and blessed day.